in our last class because we finished the first division of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. So the first division, the way I've divided it, is starting the day. And that's what we concluded yesterday. So from waking up to washing our hands, getting dressed, using the washroom, having a clean environment, the importance of Hashem's name and blessings, making those morning blessings when we first get up, the importance of not doing other activities before davening. We spoke about all getting dressed in the morning, the idea of tzitzis, and then get already starting to lead up to the davening, the tefillin, and then the mezuzah. And now that we kind of have our day set straight, that's the way to start a day, we now move on to the section that deals with davening. So that takes us to section 2 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is prayer. So we'll start off by talking about how we prepare for davening, and then we'll speak about davening itself. Sorry about this. Sorry, I'm having a technical issue. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, so as far as davening, we'll start by speaking about how to prepare one's body and the place for prayer, or how to prepare oneself. And then we'll speak about the holiness of a shul, or place of learning. And finally, we'll move on to the individual sections of davening, which is kind of a whole section in its own right, how one understands the different sections of davening and what laws apply to those different sections, how we go about the davening. But before we actually start davening, let's first prepare ourselves. And the Shulchan Aruch says that preparation consists of 4 areas: preparing the place, one's clothing, one's body, and one's thoughts. And the Kitzur, he starts the section with preparing our clothing. Place we already mentioned earlier. We discussed that before we spoke about blessings. We spoke about which places are, what would be a problematic to daven. And we said 2 things get in the way of davening, either nakedness or filth. So once you've ensured that that's not in the way, we'll speak soon about the importance of davening in a special place and a minyan and all of that. But as far as preparation is concerned, let's move on to clothing. And the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch begins. It says, prepare to meet your God, O Israel. Preparing yourself before Hashem means that you should dress yourself in the same type of respectful clothing when you daven as you would when meeting a high official. Even if you pray privately in your own home, which is quite relevant for now, then you should dress properly. In those places where the custom is to wear a special sash, meaning a belt, during prayers, it is forbidden to pray until you gird yourself with such a sash. So when we daven, we are talking to the King of Kings, to the Master of the universe, and therefore we need to be dressed accordingly, even if we're home. And all the jokes out there about the, Zoom clothing starting waist upwards, and the smart clothing. But when we're davening, we need to be dressed appropriately from head to toe. In the original Shulchan Aruch, he actually has a discussion about whether it is okay to wear sandals without socks. And the conclusion is it depends where you are. If you're in a place where it would be acceptable to wear sandals without socks, even in a more prominent place, meaning these are more in the areas around Israel, some of the places there, people are used to wearing sandals even in a prominent area, even when standing before a dignitary, then that would be fine for davening. However, if you would not be comfortable dressed that way when standing before somebody important, then you should not be standing that way when you daven either. And he mentions in a place where it's customary to wear a belt, then that becomes a requirement for davening, because again, you want to look presentable when you stand before the Almighty. And it's in this context that the Hasidic custom is to wear what's called a gartel, which is a belt in addition to their belt over their clothing, which relates to this concept of preparing yourself for davening. It's good to give tzedakah before davening, as it says, "As for me, with righteousness, I will behold your presence." So we see in the verse that it's through tzedakah, it's through tzedakah that we come to see Hashem. So the way to prepare ourselves to see Hashem is by giving tzedakah. You should also resolve before each davening to fulfill the mitzvah, to love your neighbor as yourself. You must determine to love every Jew as yourself, because if there is, God forbid, dissension within Israel in this world, then there's no harmony in the world above. As long as we're not getting along, Hashem is unhappy as well. However, when there is unity in this world, it causes spiritual unity of our souls in the world above. And as a result, our prayers are unified. And when our prayers are unified, they are accepted favorably before Him, blessed be He. So if we want our prayers to be heard, then we certainly want to do that in a spirit of Avas Yisrael, of loving one's fellow, and therefore we both give tzedakah before starting to daven. Already the sages of the Talmud would find a poor person and give charity before he began his davening. Earlier we spoke about how you shouldn't go and greet somebody before you daven, but now we see the contrast. If it's about just, getting onto a WhatsApp group or just having fun conversation, then first daven. But if it's a matter of helping somebody else, then certainly it's most appropriately to give tzedakah, to raise somebody's spirits. That's the best way to prepare for davening. And as we begin our davening, we should bear in mind that we are united. We are doing this in the spirit of Avas Yisrael. So that is as far as clothing, and as far as body. It's a way to prepare ourselves is to make sure that we are in the right space. We're in a space of giving and caring, and that's the way our prayers will be accepted. Now, as far as body, so we've spoken a little bit about this earlier. So this is section 3 and 4 touches upon it, that a person should not daven if they need to go to the bathroom. Rather, they should first take care of their needs and only then daven. And that's what he speaks about over here. Gets into a little bit more detail, meaning how urgently does one need to, really the bottom line is like this, that as long as one needs to use the washroom, one should do so first before davening. If there's a time restraint, then it may depend on how much a person needs the bathroom. And if one did already daven, then there's a question whether one needs to daven again, because if a person davened when they really, really needed to go to the bathroom, then actually the davening doesn't work. Hashem doesn't want us to be davening in such a state of being. And so therefore, not only would he have done the wrong thing by not going to the bathroom first, but actually his davening would be invalid and he would have to daven again. Let's see that inside. It's written, guard your feet when you walk to the house of Hashem. Now sages have explained, your feet means the cavities that are near our feet. Therefore, before davening, one should check if he needs to relieve himself. If you feel even the slightest urge, then you are forbidden to pray. It is even forbidden to study Torah when the body is needy until you relieve yourself. If, however, you davened, so you shouldn't have davened, but you did daven, even though you needed to go to the washroom, then if you would have been able to hold yourself in approximately the time it takes to walk a parsa, which is about 4 kilometers, which is about, he puts down here 72 minutes. There are different opinions about this. Meaning, if you would have been able to restrain yourself for that long, then it's not considered that it was you were as needy, and therefore the davening would still be valid. However, if you could not have restrained yourself, even though you have davened, your prayer is an abomination, and you need to daven again. Okay, different opinions about this, but you got the idea. So next section talks about not only relieving oneself, but also emitting gas. If you are sure that you cannot restrain yourself from releasing gas until after completing the Shema, it is preferable to let the time of the Shema and the Amidah elapse rather than pray with an unclean body. Meaning that, again, not only if one needs to go to the bathroom, but if one is not able to control oneself in the way we just described, then again, one should hold back on the davening. So the truth is that there's two mitzvahs. There's a mitzvah to daven and there's a mitzvah to say Shema. And the mitzvah to say Shema is just the Shema. In fact, according to some opinions, according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, even if you just said the first line, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, you've already fulfilled that mitzvah, although it is better to follow all opinions and to say a little bit more than that. So hopefully a person would be able to restrain himself for the few seconds or the few minutes of saying the Shema. But more than that, as far as davening is concerned, one cannot daven if one is not feeling well, if he has a bad stomach, and if it was the time of davening past, then it's considered like it was beyond the person's circumstances. They weren't feeling well. They shouldn't feel at fault for that. And you would still be able to daven at a later point, as we'll learn about later, the time for davening. Okay. And he says here, if you feel that you can restrain yourself during the reading of the Shema, you should put on the tefillin right before the Shema and say the Shema, then take the tefillin off. Okay. So that is as far as the stomach. Now we move on to washing our hands before davening. This is relevant not just in the context of COVID coming to shul. They've just released or working on protocols of how to come back to shul as soon as we're able to. And obviously a part of that is washing one's hands. So the hands must be washed with water until the wrist before davening. Therefore, even if you already washed negovas or your hands in the morning, if your hands may have touched any unclean spots, meaning, as we've discussed, any parts of the body that are usually covered, where there's sweat, or if you scratched your head, or if you haven't yet washed them up to the wrist in the morning, then one must make sure to wash them before davening. Listen to this. If there's no water available, you need to go searching for water, even traveling 44 mil, which is about 4 kilometers, meaning even traveling for 72 minutes forwards if you're on the road, or 1 mil backwards, which would be about 18 minutes backwards, in order to find water. So it means to spend over an hour looking for water just to be able to wash one's hands before davening. So it's a very, very important step that needs to be taken. If you're afraid that you're going to spend so much time looking for water, that in the meantime, you're going to miss the time that you're supposed to daven before. The time for davening the Amidah, the Shemona Esrei, is the first third of the day, which in the day that sunrise was at 6 a.m. and sunset was at 6 p.m., it would be at 10 a.m. So if you're going to miss the time for davening, then you would be allowed to clean your hands on some other material, on a rock or earth, or maybe using your sanitizer, any other substance that cleans and then daven. As it is written, I will wash my hands in purity, meaning you should first wash your hands. And if you don't have what to wash your hands with, at least let them be nikayon, let them be clean, so that, first preference is water. If water is not available, then you could use anything to clean your hands before davening. And finally, and this is certainly something very much on our hearts now, before that, one more section on washing our hands. If you washed your hands in the morning correctly, but you do not know if they have become dirty in the interim, meaning you're not sure where you may have touched in the meantime, if you may have put your hands under your clothing in any space that's sweaty or smelly, then even if you've learned, all you were doing was studying Torah from when you woke up, it's still considered an interruption and you would be obligated to wash them once again. However, you don't have to go searching for water if you don't know that your hands became dirty in between. you could use anything to clean your hands. So in summary, we're saying that if you know that you touched a place that is smelly or sweaty or anything that's dirty, then you are required to use water to clean your hands unless none is available. If you know that your hands have remained clean because you just washed them a little bit earlier, but you did divert your mind in the meantime, and there's a possibility that they may have become dirty, then it would suffice to use any cleaning agents. And now to what's most relevant to us today, the minyan. You should make a serious effort to daven with the minyan, with the congregation. As it is written, as for me, may my prayer to you, Hashem, be at a favorable time. When is a favorable time? When the community davens together. It also says in the pasuk, thus said Hashem, at a favorable time I have answered you. The Holy One, blessed be He, never disdains the prayers of the multitude, even if there are sinners in their midst. So even if there's a sinner as part of the community, somebody who's doing not good stuff, the fact that he's joined together with the community makes his prayers favorable before Hashem. As it is written, behold, Hashem is mighty, meaning He is the God of the multitude, yet He does not despise anyone. It is also written, He has redeemed my soul in peace from impending battle for the sake of the many that were with me. So we see in all these verses that there's something powerful in davening together with the community. And in the following halachos, we'll discuss what happens if a person is traveling. To what extent does he need to go to make sure to daven with the community, to daven with the minyan? Even now, too, there's a requirement to daven with the minyan. However, the danger of life overrides all other requirements in the Torah aside from 3. So although we would be required to daven with a minyan, since there is danger of life involved to us and to others, therefore that overrides it. Thank you for joining us. Wishing you a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Rabban. Got one
Thanks,
question.
Rabbi.